Is this thing, I don't know if it's, I think it's on. Oh yeah, I think it's recording. What's up everybody, how you doing? Do you ever want to do like a big trip and you always have this anxiety of leaving something behind or overpacking? I think we all do. And no matter how many times I've planned trips and put things on, there's always that thought that's right there that I'm gonna forget something. So over the last few years, I've kind of put things in place to streamline that whole process, to kind of alleviate that itch that I'm gonna forget something or overpack something or do whatever. And it's by creating like checklists, and those things have come from experience and from failing and forgetting things on trips. Trust me, I forgot a lot of things that was needed for certain trips that, you know, you get out there and it's just not there. So today on this vlog, I thought it would be fun to kind of go over some of the kit that we're taking on this trip that I'm planning, or I've planned. Actually, we're ready to hit the ground on Tuesday. We're leaving Tuesday. It's now Saturday, and I've just kind of gone through all the kit, tested everything, and made sure everything was in place for our Across the Highlands expedition, which is, if you're unfamiliar with what we do, it's a 5-day snowshoe trip traversing the entire Cape Breton Highlands National Park. So we go from east all the way to west. So Ingonish all the way to Shetty Camp. It's roughly around like 70-kilometer snowshoe trip, 5 days, 4 nights. We cross over White Hill, which is the highest elevation in Nova Scotia. But what's cool about this trip is that there's gonna be apparently two other groups back there around the same time. I mean, what's cool about that is that when we started doing these trips as a business 4 or 5 years ago, we were the only people doing these. I didn't know of anybody other than a small group of local individuals that would go back in this backcountry. And now there's more and more people asking about information on how to do it. But listen, we organize these trips. If you're at all new to outdoor winter camping or winter adventures, or if you have interest in joining any of these trips, just reach out. I'm just gonna start going through gear. I'll give you kind of an insight on what we pack. I'll give you an overview. I've got a lot of stuff here on the table behind the camera, and then I'll kind of just go into certain items on why we take it. And yeah, we're just gonna have fun, go through all this kit, and you're gonna help me make sure that I have everything for this trip. So we're here getting ready for a Across the Highlands 5-day expedition. So this is a 5-day snowshoe trip traversing the Cape Breton Highlands National Park. I'm just getting a couple kits of gear out and testing it out. So we've got an older Whisperlite stove and a brand new Whisperlite stove. I'm getting running here. They are both white fuel stoves. Now we're just gonna fire these up and see how they both function. I think one of them needs to be maintained a little fixed up. And then we're gonna get into a couple tents. I did buy a really cheap Amazon tent to test out and compare to my North Face Summit Series tents, which are actually bomb-proof. And if you have the money, they are hands down the best tent that I've ever owned. So we're just gonna get in and test these stoves. Let's get at it. This is the setup. Stove's burning real nice. You can't see the flame now because of the sun. It's really nice out, but you can hear that working, and that's the sound that you want. You want kind of that whisper, that hissing. So these stoves, what you do is you pressurize this canister. Once you have fuel in it, connect it to the stove. You open this, basically a half a turn, quarter turn. You fill up this little cup at the bottom right there. Close it off, light the fuel. That'll burst into a flame, but once it's almost dead, it will start to look like it's going to go out. You start slowly opening this, and then you'll start getting the hiss. What it's doing is heating up the whole internal system there to make this stove work perfectly, and this thing will boil water in a couple minutes. And then every 10 minutes or so, you're supposed to put like 10 pumps, something like that, into there. You'll notice a flame and the power will drop down, but that's number one stove tested. Okay, so that's stove number one. Now we're gonna test the older stove. I hear, I've been told from my brother that this has a little bit of issues with it. So we're gonna fire it up, see what it's like, and then we'll do a little bit of maintenance on it. So again, we're opening up this valve just a little bit. You'll notice Some fuel is starting to come out around the top on this one. Usually it comes around the top on this one, and then it slowly seeps down to the bottom. But I'm going to shut it off once I see it up here, and we're going to start lightening it up. And see that big flame? I've now shut this bottle off. We're going to let this warm up and heat up the system, and then we're going to fire up the fuel. But this will just take a second of going into this type of flame, and then you'll start to hear the sound change. See, now the flame is starting to drop. There we go. Boom. And she works. And that's all there is to it, to these stoves. Actually, this is working quite good. I don't think we're going to have to do any maintenance to it. Okay, so that's the sound that you want. You want that hissing with these Whisper Light stoves, and then you're good. You put some water on it, you let that boil, man. It doesn't take long at all. A couple minutes, it'll boil a pot of water. I think we're good on these stoves. I'm gonna pack them away, let them cool down, and I'm gonna get out some tents. I'll pop up 2 different tents here in a minute and show you a cheap one I bought on Amazon and my really good North Face, or one of our really good North Face 4-season tents. Okay, so I went ahead and set up 2 different tents here. Now, one of them is our main North Face Summit Series 3-person winter tent. We have a couple other 2-person tents as well. These are literally bomb-proof. They are our go-to winter camping tent. We've had these for 2 or 3 years. We use these on most of our winter expeditions. Now, I was very curious to see what a really cheap Amazon 4-season tent with really good reviews would be like. So I wanted to buy something that was kind of similar. And one of the biggest features that I was looking for was having the snow skirts. So essentially, if you're not sure of those are these little pieces of extended fabric from a fly that you would then bury, bury under snow. That would kind of limit the amount of wind that's getting up underneath the tent, and thus create a more fixed structure to the ground, but also limit the amount of airflow going up, which will help with the air value of the tent. Okay, so we got 2 tents. This is the North Face one, and this is the Gear Top. It was $120 on Amazon, had really good reviews. Now, what I was talking about, these are the snow, like I call them snow skirts or whatever. So essentially what would happen is you pop this tent up, tie all the guy lines down, and then bury these in the snow. The biggest difference between the both tents is the inner tent. This one is set up like a 3-season tent, which is perfectly fine for doing winter stuff. It just creates more breathable space. So the inside of the tent, that's all mesh. Rather than being like the North Face, which is just solid material with vents. But as far as this Gear Top tent goes, the inner tent, this is a 2-person. It's similar to our North Face summer tents, 3-season tents. Perfect space. They do have some pockets around the sides, but they're super small. Like right there, there's only enough to fit a glove and maybe a headlamp into. And then there's another one over here. So that's the inner tent, kind of like slacking on stuff, but it'll get you by for $120. What I do like about these tents is, again, the snow flap, and that there's a couple vents. But what I don't like about this is the guy line that gets sent with it are really shitty. There's no guy lines on the door sides, so I'll show you later on the North Face. There's guy lines everywhere, so there's nothing to pull this and keep this off of the tent, other than the bottom here has 2 flaps that you would then put into, ideally, you know, in the summer it would be a stake, but the winter it would be a snow anchor. Doesn't really make sense on these because they're not clipped in, they're not Velcro. So if you want to open the tent, you either got to squeeze through this little gap or open this flat completely, which is going to fall back on the tent. And the reason why you want that off the side of the tent is to create an airflow, so it kind of keeps stuff dry and ventilates properly. Those are the main things. The other thing I don't like about these tents is this clip.
You see these on MSR tents, this here clip to the fly, to the actual tent and poles. These seem kind of flimsy and cheap. In cold weather, I'm assuming they will get quite brittle and be subject to breaking and snapping. And if you had this tent in high winds, which we usually get in the Highlands, 100 some kilometer winds, that's subject to breaking. So that gear top tent is, I mean, if you're just going to use it for winter camping here in Nova Scotia in the woods, that's probably fine. However, this is not my top choice. And if anybody wants to buy it, DM me, because I'll probably sell it to you for cheaper than you buy it off Amazon. Okay, so now let's talk North Face Summit Series tent. This is the 3-person tent, and it is one of the go-to tents for any winter trip. It's just built so much better than the cheaper ones, and this is meant to withstand a lot of wind. Now, before I show you the tent, this is, it's not properly set up because I'm just popping it up to see, you know, if everything's good to go, if we need a repair, change any of the guy lines, which I am going to, because there's really cheap just twine that's on here, just as extra guy lines. I think we're tying off to snowshoes and stuff last year, or last time we used them. Okay, now this tent, as like I said, 3-person. You've got a back door, which is literally just a little entrance, and then you've got this, which is a nice vestibule, which kind of is quite big. It sticks out. So what you do is these snow skirts, what you do is anchor the front clips off of, and in the winter you'd be using snow anchors. Then you bury these flaps, and you can kind of dig out little footholes. So if you're in a big thing of snow, you can almost walk right in, sit down, take your boots off, store them on the other side, and jump in the tent itself. Now the guy lines here are my favorite. These are all reflective. They come with a nice tensioning system, super easy to use. My favorite anchor is this 3-point anchored system that goes to a little ring, and you come off and you can kind of move this around wherever you want to anchor it. Nice big line, perfect. Normally what I would do with these is hook this up with a carabiner, and then that gets hooked onto a snow anchor or onto snowshoe buried or pole or piece of wood or whatever. Tons and tons of tie downs, guy lines. We have modified ones ourselves. This is the back door. Again, just a little entrance. You can come in and out when you're night peeing, so you don't have to go in and put all your boots and all that sort of stuff on. The vents, these are needed. Great vents, and you can open these up from the inside as well. They've got a little stick, and this goes right down, and you have to unzip it. There's no mesh inside. You have to unzip the vent and control the moisture and ventilation system in the way out. The other thing that I like about these that I didn't like about the other tent is the system for connecting the poles is into these rivets, and these canopies, instead of being the clip, they have these little eyelets. As I'm sure a lot of you watching this are aware, this goes down underneath these here. Just tension that up and you're good to go. So let's get inside this tent and I'll show you around. So unlike the other tent, we've got pockets literally all over, and these things are huge. I can fit most of my gear inside of those. Gloves, hats, my little bag full of food and snacks. You've got other clips up here you can clip stuff off to, and then you've got your vents at the top. This, unlike the other tent, is not mesh at the top, not like a 3-season tent. This is all solid until you open these vents. And then you can open, this goes straight to mesh, and you can open this zipper and stick your hand out and pop open that vent if you want and open it. But inside, super bomb proof, man. We've been in this in 120 kilometer winds. It's amazing. Everybody, so now that we've got the tent and the stoves tested up, there's the 2 main pieces of kit. I just kind of started packing all of my personal items. So I'm just gonna briefly go through what I would pack heading over the Highlands. And there's some stuff that's not here, like the map and a couple other things that I'll organize later, but I'm just trying to get my bag kitted out. I've kind of packed down gear for the group already. I'll show you how we tend to pack things for people when we're doing these trips. When you join any of the trips that we put on, we try to standardize the whole kit so everybody's eating the same type of food, so it's easy. We just boil water, add to dry freeze meals, that sort of stuff, because when we're doing any of these big trips, food is almost your biggest weight. Of course, it gets less and less throughout the trip,
But yeah, we don't want to be packing any super heavy weighted food. It's all dry, dehydrated stuff, some nuts, dried fruit, that sort of stuff, a lot of candy, sugars, carbs, all that sort of shit. But anyways, here we go. I'll give you a kind of like a little tour of what I got going on here. What you see on this table here is most of the kit that I will take with me. It'll be packed down in my backpack or hanging off the side of my backpack. So I'll just quickly go over each of these items. I've got my gloves. I have 3 pairs of gloves. I have a wool pair, a lightweight pair, and a heavy pair. These are Gore-Tex mech gloves. My thermarest, first layer, my Z-Lite, and then an insulated cheap Amazon find that was actually pretty good. This is the Ecotech Outdoors Hibernate insulated, yeah, 4-season pad, super easy. I got a little pump. This is a Coco Pelli pump. This is for the pack wraps, but it works well for this application. We got walkies, two-way radios, my down booties. Now you get these synthetic from Mech. These probably should be updated. These are also 10 some years old. They're losing some down. There's some holes burnt into them, duct taped over. But anyways, those are for base camp. So when you get to camp, take off your boots. This is, you saw in the other videos, this is all my cook gear. So coffee making stuff, little pot, that sort of stuff in there. I've got my daily food broken down in here. I got items in there. We'll go through that in a second. Noon tablets, electrolytes. This is a kit, this blue kit here, that is just like repair kits and service kits for the stoves and all that sort of stuff. A knife, saw in case we need it. Of course, the fuel bottles for the stoves. I got my MSR pot set. This thing I've had for 10 plus years. That's the stove is actually inside of that with a lighter, matches, and a bunch of stuff. These things, perfect Luminade lights. This one is just a light. This one is you can charge devices and phones off it on a full charge. They are great, packed down super thin. They can hang off your backpack and recharge by solar if we get some sun. Now, here's some insulated water bottle carriers. I recommend bringing 2. I put 2 different ones on here. Outdoor Research. This one is the best one that I found, and for years we couldn't really find any good ones. That is the new one that I got in Algene. I'm not a fan of the zipper, but we'll see how they work. And all my food. That's probably 10 pounds of food or more. First aid kit. That's pretty much it. Okay, when it comes to food and packing food, I like to break things down by day, and that's kind of how I do it out for everybody that joins the trip. And I just, I'm a big fan of Ziploc bags. So that's about 3,000 calories in there for the day. It's got my breakfast, my snacks, 2 meals, dehydrated meals. I tend to pick the dehydrated meals that cook the fastest, so stuff with rice, couscous, that sort of stuff. Also, it takes 375 mils of water. These Happy Acts, that's the least amount for actual meals with Happy Acts, I believe. Other ones are like 500-600 mils, so it's less water, takes less time to cook. And in the winter, you just put all the boiling water in on it, and you put it inside your puffer jacket, zip it up, and you stay nice and toasty on the inside. Okay, so other things that I have, like I showed you at the top of my backpack there, there's like a backpack, it's just like a waterproof rain cover. Even though my backpack is weatherproof, the zippers aren't, but I tend to put this on at night in the winter in case it snows or rains or does whatever. If I leave my backpack outside, I can hide stuff underneath that, keeps everything nice and dry. I've got like a little manual, first aid manual, field guide with me. I've got a pair of socks in there. I've got a compass. I've got a Garmin InReach Mini. I've been using this. The Explorer one was sold out when I went to buy it, but this one works just great. I highly recommend Garmin over Spot devices. They're a lot more accurate, safer. I've got my logbook, which this has pretty much all kinds of information about every trip that I've done in the last 5 or 6 years, plus like another Write on Rain notebook that is GPS coordinates of campsites that I've liked, that I've stayed at, that I, things that I've found in the woods, that sort of stuff. I've got tablets. Even though up in the Highlands we'll be drinking out of a lot of the streams and stuff and boiling water, this is, listen, I had Giardia last year and I was in bed for 10 days, so it sucked, trust me. I got 2 headlamps, both the same, Petzl, cheap ones. It's all you really need. These work well. I've got extra batteries and all that sort of stuff.
And then I've got batteries and charging kits and stuff like that for all my electronics. That'd be my Garmin, my watch, that sort of stuff, and a bunch of hand warmers and all that sort of shit. So I know I talk real fast, but that is kind of a rough idea of what I'm bringing in my backpack. And now it's just to pack the bag. And that's going to be the biggest challenge every year, is packing this bag. But if you have a good system, this doesn't take long, and having a good idea of where things are in your backpack and thinking before you pack, like everything that you want to be accessed that day. So your map and compass, well, your compass is going to be around your neck, but your map should be accessible, super accessible. Like snacks for the day, instead of having to take your backpack off and weed all through it, they should be readily accessible. If you have kind of a fanny pack or a little pouch on your waist strap, or even at the top of your bag like mine, all that stuff easy, accessible, so you don't have to be wasting time and taking your backpack off and holding up the rest of the group. But anyways, let's get a packing. Okay, so not that bad actually, hey? It should all fit in. The only thing I'm really missing is a couple items of clothes, snowshoes, poles, and my tent, which will add an extra couple pounds. But other than that, she's pretty good. She is pretty good. It's I'd say you're coming in around 40 some pounds. I'd say with the tent, it's gonna be around 50 pounds. Now all that's left is to head to Breton, meet up with the crew, and head out on the trip. I'm gonna try to do my best and capture this whole trip and do a nice vlog on what it's like to cross the Cape Breton Highlands National Park. But anyways, until next week, thanks for following along. Hope any of this was good information for you. And if you have any questions about any of the stuff, I know I breezed over a lot of this information. I just kind of wanted to do a quick little vlog and check in about how we pack for a backcountry trip. And if you have any questions or think we should cover anything, pop them in the comments. And yeah, we'll do an episode on that. Anyways, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the Highlands.